The human starship Aurora drifted slowly through the glowing gates of the alien system, its silver hull catching the light of a distant sun. This was not a warship, but a diplomatic vessel, carrying humanity's first official delegation to the Empire of Queen Zarelith. The galaxy was vast, filled with strange species and old powers, but humans were still newcomers on the interstellar stage. They had fought no great wars in space, claimed no massive empires, and built only a handful of colonies beyond their homeworld. For now, they were learners, explorers, and guests among civilizations much older and much prouder. Captain Daniel Reeve stood at the window of the command deck, staring at the massive alien palace station orbiting the green world below. It was carved like a crown in the stars with long silver spires that glowed with a purple light. Hundreds of ships moved in and out of its docking bays, most painted in black and gold, the colors of the Queen herself. Daniel adjusted his uniform, collar, feeling sweat on the back of his neck. He was a soldier, trained for discipline and strategy, but today was not about war. Today was about words. Beside him stood Lieutenant Harper, his second in command. Harper was younger, sharper, and more relaxed. He had been smiling ever since they entered orbit. "Cheer up, Captain," he said lightly. "It's just a royal greeting. Smile, bow, say a few words, and we're done. Easy." Daniel gave him a tight look. "Easy? We're meeting one of the most powerful rulers in this part of the galaxy. One wrong word and we might be sent home, or worse." Harper grinned. "Well, good thing we have the translator device. That thing has worked for dozens of alien tongues already. What could possibly go wrong?" Daniel did not answer. He kept his eyes on the palace station. He knew translators were reliable, yes, but he also knew technology was not perfect. And the Queen they were about to meet was famous across the stars for her pride. She was called the Jewel of Zarel, the ruler of 1,000 worlds. The slightest insult could be taken as a challenge to her throne. Humans could not afford mistakes. The shuttle carried the small delegation across the void to the palace. When the hatch opened, the humans stepped into a hall so vast it seemed like a cathedral. Tall alien guards with shimmering black armor stood on both sides, their weapons glowing with blue energy. The air smelled faintly of metal and sweet spice. The floor was polished so well that the humans saw their own faces reflected in it. At the far end of the hall sat Queen Zarelith on a throne of crystal and light. Her form was tall, elegant, and covered in scales that shone like emeralds under the chamber's glow. A golden crown rested on her head, carved to look like flames rising toward the sky. Around her, dozens of alien courtiers and advisors watched, with curious eyes, their voices whispering as the human delegation approached. Daniel felt his throat go dry. He carried the translator device in his hand, a small orb that projected sound into the proper language. It had served well in meetings with the Krivans, the Nor, and even the sharp-tongued Trell, whose language was nothing but clicks and snaps. This time it would serve again. He bowed low and pressed the device. "It is an honor to meet you, Your Majesty," Daniel said clearly. The translator blinked. A moment later, a voice rang out in the alien tongue, smooth and strong. But instead of respect, the words came out as, "Nice hat, Your Majesty. Did you steal it from a space chicken?" The hall froze. Silence slammed down like a hammer. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. Every courtier's eyes widened. Queen Zarelith's head tilted ever so slightly, her golden crown glittering under the light. Daniel blinked. He looked around. Harper's smile had vanished, replaced with shock. The Queen's eyes narrowed like daggers. "What did you just say to me?" she asked, her voice sharp as broken glass. The translator repeated her words faithfully. Daniel felt his blood turn cold. "Wait, no, that's not..." He tapped the device frantically. "I said it was an honor." He tried again, speaking, slower. "Your Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth." The device hummed, then translated. "Your Majesty, I bring cheap greetings from dirt." Gasps echoed through the hall. Some courtiers pressed their hands over their mouths. A few could not hide soft chuckles. Daniel's face burned. He turned to Harper, who lifted his hands helplessly. "It's glitching," Harper whispered. "Say something else, maybe simpler." Daniel tried again, his voice desperate. "We come in peace and respect." The translator cheerfully blurted, "We come in peace and bad breath." The laughter this time could not be contained. The courtiers burst into giggles, their tails and wings twitching with amusement. Even some of the guards shook with barely hidden smiles. But Queen Zarilith did not laugh. She stood slowly from her throne, her tall frame casting a shadow over the humans. "Do humans think themselves clever?" she asked coldly. "Do you mock me in my own hall?" Daniel raised his hands. "No, absolutely not. It's a mistake, a malfunction." He turned and shook the device hard as if hoping it would fix itself. His heart was pounding. If this failed, if the queen believed he mocked her, then the mission was already lost. Beside him, Harper stepped forward quickly. "Your Majesty, forgive us," he said. "This is not our intention. The machine is broken." The translator worked for Harper too, but its error only deepened the disaster. His words came out as, "Your Majesty, forgive us. Our brains are broken." A wave of roaring laughter swept through the court. One alien even fell to the floor, clutching his stomach. The sound echoed against the tall walls, a storm of mirth. Daniel felt like collapsing. Harper put his hand over his face. "Oh, this is bad," he muttered under his breath. But not everyone was laughing with cruelty. A softer sound rose among the voices, a clear, ringing giggle. Daniel looked up to see a young alien standing near the queen's throne. She wore a smaller crown, her scales a lighter shade of green, her eyes bright with mischief. She was the EI that queen's daughter, Princess Elira. She laughed freely without fear. "Mother, they call your crown a space chicken's prize," she said, her voice delighted. She repeated the phrase in her own tongue, and the courtiers howled louder than before. Queen Zarilith turned her gaze toward her daughter. Her eyes softened slightly, but only for a moment. Then she looked back at the humans. "You are lucky," she said slowly, her voice still dangerous, "that I suspect this foolishness is not by design. But one more insult, and I will decide. Otherwise?" Daniel swallowed hard. Sweat rolled down his back. He wanted to smash the translator into the floor, but it was their only link to communication. He bowed deeply again, praying the device would cooperate this time. "I truly mean respect, Great Queen," he said. The translator spun its wheels and answered, "I truly mean you are a very large, sparkly lizard." The court erupted again. Daniel closed his eyes. This was going to be the longest day of his life. The silence in the throne room after the last mistranslation felt heavy, broken only by the bursts of laughter from the courtiers. Captain Daniel Reeve stood frozen in his bow, his ears burning, his mind racing for a way to salvage the disaster. The alien queen's eyes glowed like emerald fire, but she had not yet given the order for her guards to strike. That small mercy was all he had to cling to. Lieutenant Harper, standing close beside him, whispered quietly without moving his lips. "Captain, we need to think fast. If this keeps up, they'll throw us out. Or worse." Daniel kept his bow, lowering his voice to reply, "I know. Just give me time." But time was not what they had. The queen finally raised her long hand, and the court fell into silence once more. Her voice rang clear across the chamber, sharp and commanding. "Humans," she said, "your words wound even as they amuse. I do not tolerate disrespect, and I will not allow clumsy games in my hall. If you cannot speak truth, then speak nothing." The translator repeated her words flawlessly, which almost made the humans want to laugh at the cruel irony of it. When they spoke, it twisted into insult. When she spoke, it worked perfectly. Daniel forced himself to stand tall and meet her eyes. "Your Majesty, I swear we came here with full respect." The translator responded, "Your Majesty, I swear we came here full of mistakes." A few courtiers burst out laughing again. Princess Elira laughed the loudest, covering her mouth but failing to hide her delight. She leaned toward her mother and whispered something that made the queen frown deeper. Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to grab the device and smash it into the polished floor, but he knew that would look like weakness. He had to find another way. The Queen looked down at him for a long moment. Perhaps you are not ready for my court. Perhaps humanity is too young to stand among the stars. Daniel felt a cold fear in his chest. If the Queen rejected them, it would not only ruin this mission, it would mark humanity as fools across the galaxy. Other races would hear of the insult and no one would trust them. Before he could speak again, Harper stepped forward, his voice firm. Your Majesty, please allow us to prove our respect another way. Give us one chance to show sincerity without this broken device. The Queen's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head. Without your machine? Then how will you speak my language? Harper looked at Daniel with a small shrug, then back at the Queen. We learned a few words, not perfect, but we can try. The court murmured at this boldness. Some aliens chuckled, expecting failure. Others leaned forward with interest. Even the Queen's expression shifted slightly from anger to curiosity. Daniel's stomach turned, but he realized Harper was right. He had studied a little of the alien tongue during the voyage, just enough to greet properly. It would not be perfect, but it was better than relying on the cursed translator. Slowly, carefully, Daniel bowed again. He spoke the alien words as best as he could. Seralith, ruler, queen, honor, greet, human friend. His accent was clumsy, the syllables heavy, but the meaning was clear enough. The Queen's eyes widened just slightly. The courtiers gasped softly. Even the guards shifted with surprise. For the first time, Queen Zarelith's lips curved, not in a smile, but in something close. You attempt my tongue, she said, her voice calmer now. It is rough, but it is effort. Effort I respect. Relief washed over Daniel like cool water. He bowed deeper, ignoring the ache in his back. Yes, he said simply. Effort. But before the tension could ease fully, the cursed translator device, still active, suddenly clicked back on and repeated, his words into alien speech. Yes, effort. Also, your throne looks uncomfortable, like a giant shiny toilet. The court exploded with laughter so violent that several aliens doubled over, choking with mirth. Princess Elira laughed so hard she nearly fell off her seat. Daniel froze, his heart stopping. Harper slapped a hand over his face. The Queen stood, still her eyes wide with outrage once more. The throne room shook with the noise of laughter. For a long moment, no one knew what would happen next. Then, unexpectedly, the Queen let out a long sigh. She waved her hand and the noise slowly died down. Her eyes fixed on Daniel again. You are either the bravest or the most foolish creatures I have ever seen, she said. No one dares insult me. No one dares call me such things. And yet, here you stand, clumsy, sweating, desperate, but still standing. Daniel felt her words strike deep. He bowed again, his voice almost breaking. We stand, because Earth needs friends. The translator, as if mocking him, spoke. We stand, because Earth needs food. Laughter again. But this time, the Queen did not frown. Instead, her shoulders shook slightly. For the first time, she gave a soft, genuine laugh. It was not cruel, not mocking, but real. Her courtiers looked at one another in disbelief. The Queen never laughed in court. Never. Princess Elira was overjoyed, her bright eyes shining. Mother, perhaps the humans are not mocking you. Perhaps they are just cursed with bad luck. But isn't it wonderful? No other ambassadors ever made us laugh. The Queen raised a hand to quiet her daughter, but her sternness had softened. She looked at Daniel and Harper again, her emerald eyes searching them. Finally, she spoke. Very well. I will allow this meeting to continue, but you must prove yourselves in action, not just words. Daniel felt a spark of hope. We will, Your Majesty. The translator translated. We will, O shiny big boss lady, the court howled again. The queen sighed but allowed it. Enough, she said. Let them remain. The humans bowed deeply, hearts pounding. They had survived the first storm. The queen had not cast them out. They had not failed completely. But Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The queen's patience was thin, and one more failure could still ruin everything. They would need to tread carefully from this point on. As they were guided to their seats at the side of the throne hall, Harper leaned close and whispered, "Captain, we nearly died because of a toilet joke." Daniel closed his eyes and breathed out. "Let's hope we survive the next one." The queen sat back on her crystal throne, her expression unreadable, but deep inside, she was curious. These humans were strange, yes, clumsy, embarrassing, reckless. And yet, they had spirit, and spirit was something the queen respected, even if she would never admit it aloud. The humans sat stiffly in the side seats of the throne hall, their uniforms neat but their nerves stretched thin. The air still carried the sound of laughter from the earlier mistranslations. Some courtiers kept whispering to each other, occasionally, glancing toward the humans with grins that mixed amusement with curiosity. Captain Daniel Reeve sat with his hands folded, forcing his face into calmness, even though his mind raced in circles. He had not expected this disaster. He had prepared for long speeches, careful negotiations, and endless formalities. What he had not prepared for was being called a fool by his own translator, in front of one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. Lieutenant Harper sat beside him, his expression caught between shame and amusement. He leaned close enough for only Daniel to hear. "You know, Captain, if we survive this, Earth will never let us live it down. Imagine the headlines. First human delegation accidentally calls alien queen, sparkly lizard toilet goddess." Daniel shut his eyes and muttered, back, "If you laugh out loud right now, I'll throw you out the airlock myself." But deep inside, even he felt the absurd humor. If the queen had not been merciful, they would already be lying in pieces somewhere beyond the palace walls. Somehow, against all odds, the queen had allowed them to stay. That thin thread of mercy was what kept Daniel steady. Queen Zarilith had settled back on her throne, her tall form glittering in the crystal light. She had not spoken since her last warning, but her eyes lingered on the humans. Her daughter, Princess Elira, sat close by, still unable to hide her amusement. She whispered now and then to her mother, and although the queen often silenced her, with a look Daniel noticed the queen never silenced her completely. That was interesting. At last the queen raised her hand and the murmurs of the court died. "We will continue," she declared. "These humans came here for purpose. If they are bold enough to survive their own clumsy tongues, then they may be bold enough to speak of alliances." Her voice rang strong across the chamber, and though it was not warm, it was not cold either. It was balanced, as though she had not yet decided what to make of the strange visitors. Daniel stood quickly, trying not to let his knees tremble. The translator orb still floated near him, glowing faintly. He hesitated, then switched it off. He could not risk another insult. Better to struggle with broken alien words than let the device betray him again. He looked directly at the queen. His accent was heavy, his tongue stumbling, but he forced the words in her language. "Human, come. Want peace. Want trade. Want friendship. No war." The hall grew quiet again. His words were not perfect, but the meaning was clear enough. The courtiers looked at each other with surprise. The queen leaned forward slowly, her emerald, scales shining. "You try my tongue again," she said, "this time without your machine." Daniel bowed deeply. "Yes," the queen tilted her head. "Many who come before me hide behind devices. They fear to sound weak, but you choose to sound foolish rather than hide. Why?" Daniel hesitated. He could have answered with a long explanation, but he chose simple words. "Truth is better than perfect sound." The courtiers murmured softly. Princess Elira smiled brightly. The queen's eyes narrowed in thought. as if measuring the weight of his answer. Then Harper stood as well. He attempted the alien tongue, his voice steady though his words were awkward. Human, strong but small, new to stars. We want, learn. We want, share. A ripple of surprise spread across the chamber. Two humans, both trying their language, both willing to risk mistakes. The Queen studied them closely. You ask for friendship, she said at last. But friendship is not words alone. Words can break. Words can twist. Even your machine twisted them into mockery. Daniel stiffened but nodded. Then we show with action. The Queen's lips curved slightly. Yes, action. A simple test. If you pass, then I will hear more. The courtiers leaned forward eagerly. They loved tests, especially when they involved outsiders. Daniel's heart sank. Tests could mean anything, combat, puzzles, or humiliations. But he bowed his head. We accept. The Queen rose from her throne, tall and commanding. You will dine with us. Our food, our drink. If you can share in our table without fear, then perhaps you are worthy to share in our trust. Daniel almost sighed in relief. Food he could handle. Surely that was better than combat. He nodded respectfully. We will eat. The Queen gestured, and attendants moved swiftly. Long tables were brought forward, carved from crystal and set with strange dishes that shimmered under the light. Bowls of glowing fruit, plates of steaming meat with blue skin, cups of liquid that shimmered like liquid fire. The smell was sharp and strange, but not unpleasant. The humans sat at the Queen's table, under the watchful eyes of the court. Daniel picked up the first piece of food, something like a fruit glowing faintly green. He bit into it carefully. The taste was sour, then sweet, like biting into lemon and honey at once. His face twitched, but he forced a smile. Harper tried a piece of meat. The moment he bit it, the blue skin cracked, releasing a spicy steam that made his eyes water. He coughed, grabbing for the cup of glowing drink, and swallowed a mouthful, only to choke again as the liquid burned like fire down his throat. The courtiers burst into laughter. Harper's face turned red as he gasped. It's fine, he croaked. Just strong. Daniel tried the drink as well. His throat burned, his stomach twisted, but he swallowed without flinching. He set the cup down carefully and gave a nod to the Queen. Good. The Queen studied them with keen eyes. Her court laughed, but she did not. Slowly, she raised her own cup and drank, her expression calm. You endure, she said. Many who sit at my table gag and spit. You do not. That is strength. Daniel bowed his head again, grateful for the smallest praise. Harper was still wiping tears from his eyes, but forced a grin. Then Princess Elira leaned forward, curiosity bright in her face. Human captain, she said in her own tongue, which Daniel only partly understood. Why risk so much? You nearly insulted us to death. You nearly choke on our food. Why keep trying? Daniel looked at her, then at the Queen. He spoke carefully, slowly, so his broken words carried weight. Because human way is try, fail, try again. Always. The princess's eyes lit up, and even the Queen's gaze softened, if only slightly. The court murmured. Some sneered, others looked impressed. But Daniel knew one thing. For the first time, he had spoken truth that reached them. The Queen leaned back in her throne. Perhaps humans are not jesters after all. Perhaps you are, stubborn creatures. I will consider what this means. Daniel exhaled slowly, feeling some of the weight lift from his chest. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Queen was not won over yet. One mistake could still undo everything. The translator orb, still floating quietly, flickered with light as though waiting to betray them again. Daniel shoved it into his pocket before it could speak. The night was far from over, and the test of the humans had only just begun. The banquet carried on in the glittering hall, and the humans remained under hundreds of watchful alien eyes. Crystal plates refilled again and again with foods of strange colors, glowing meats, and spiced roots that twisted the tongue. Daniel forced himself to eat each dish with calm dignity, even when his stomach begged him to stop. Harper tried as well, though his face twitched every time he chewed something too bitter or drank something that burned. The alien courtiers seemed to enjoy watching. Some leaned forward to whisper jokes, others laughed openly when Harper nearly coughed out smoke after biting a hot root. Yet, through it all, Queen Zarelith watched in silence, her sharp emerald eyes never leaving the humans. Daniel understood she was studying them. Every move, every bite, every wince was being weighed. This was not just a meal, it was another test, one designed to see if humans were weak or if they could endure. And so Daniel swallowed everything placed before him, even when his body protested. Eddie Sion. Last, when the plates were cleared, the queen raised her tall glass and spoke. Her voice was calm, but there was power in it. You eat our food without fleeing. Few outsiders manage that. But food is simple. Words and actions are harder. So now you will face my questions. Daniel bowed his head respectfully. We will answer. The queen's lips curved faintly. You say you come for peace, yet your kind is new among the stars. You are small, fragile, and untested. Why should the empire of Zarelith, ruler of many worlds, waste time on a species so weak? The hall grew silent. All eyes turned to Daniel. Even Harper looked tense, waiting for his captain's answer. Daniel stood slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. He spoke carefully in the alien tongue, his accent heavy but his meaning clear. We are small now, yes. But small seed grows into strong tree. We want roots and stars. We want to stand, not beg. We want to earn respect. There was a murmur through the court. Some nodded, some sneered. The queen tilted her head, her golden crown glittering. And if respect is denied, will humans crawl back to their dirt world? Daniel's jaw tightened. He met her gaze without fear. No. Humans never stop. Even if we fall, we rise again. Always. The words carried through the hall with surprising weight. Even with broken grammar, the message was strong. The courtiers went quiet. Princess. Illyra leaned closer to her mother, smiling. Mother, do you hear? They are stubborn, like us. The queen gave her daughter a glance but did not silence her this time. She turned back to Daniel. You speak of rising again, but I see trembling in your limbs. You sweat. You choke on our food. Your machine betrays you. Where is the strength in such clumsiness? Daniel's heart pounded, but he did not falter. He placed a hand on his chest. Strength is not never falling. Strength is standing after fall. We fall many times today. Still, we stand. The hall grew still. Even Harper straightened, surprised by the boldness of the words. The queen's eyes softened just slightly. She looked thoughtful. But before she could speak again, the cursed translator orb in Daniel's pocket suddenly powered back on. Its voice rang out, repeating Daniel's last words, but twisted as always. Strength is not never falling. Strength is standing after falling, on your big, shiny lizard face. The hall erupted into chaos. Courtiers fell over themselves with laughter, howling and clapping their clawed hands. Princess Illyra nearly toppled from her seat, laughing so hard tears shone in her eyes. Even the guards at the edge of the room struggled to keep their composure. Daniel's face burned red. Harper groaned into his hands. But something strange happened this time. The queen, who had every right to be furious, did not shout. Instead, her lips twitched, her shoulders shook, and then for the first time in living memory, Queen Zarelith laughed. It was not cruel, it was not mocking, it was deep, genuine laughter, rolling through the hall like thunder. The courtiers froze in shock, then joined in, the sound echoing against the walls. Daniel stared in disbelief. The queen laughed. He had nearly fainted earlier when she had chuckled softly, but this was different. This was loud, unrestrained. At last, She raised her hand and the laughter slowly died down. Her emerald eyes gleamed as she looked at Daniel. You are truly cursed with the most foolish device in the galaxy, and yet perhaps this curse is your gift. No one in my court has dared to laugh so freely in years. Not even I. Until tonight. Daniel bowed deeply, hiding his relief. If laughter is gift, then we are glad to give. The Queen regarded him in silence, then finally nodded. Very well. Humans may yet have a place among the stars, but laughter alone cannot win trust. Tomorrow you will face a true trial. If you succeed, I will hear your proposals. If you fail, your journey ends here. The court buzzed with excitement. Trials were rare, and the thought of watching humans attempt one filled the hall with eager whispers. Daniel bowed again, though. His stomach nodded. We accept. That night the humans were given chambers within the palace. Daniel sat heavily on the edge of his bed, his head in his hands. Harper paced back and forth, muttering. This is insane, Harper said. We came here for a simple greeting, maybe a trade deal, and now we're facing some kind of trial tomorrow. Do you even know what it will be? Daniel shook his head. No, but refusing isn't an option. If we run, Earth loses everything. Harper threw up his hands. And if we fail, Earth still loses everything. Great choices, Captain. Daniel looked up at him, his eyes steady despite his exhaustion. We won't fail, we can't. That Queen, she's testing us. She wants to see if we're weak or if we're worth her time. We'll prove we are. Harper groaned. I hope you're right, because if that cursed translator speaks up tomorrow, we're both dead. Daniel gave a tired chuckle. Then we'd better pray it runs out of power. But even as he said it, he knew the device was not done with them. The night stretched on, restless and heavy. In her chambers, Queen Zarelith sat with Princess Alira. The young princess was still giggling softly, replaying the humans' mistranslations in her mind. They are strange, Alira said happily. Clumsy, yes, but brave, and very funny. The Queen's expression was thoughtful. Strange indeed. I do not know yet if they are fools, or if they are something more. Tomorrow's trial will tell us. The morning sun glowed faintly through the towering windows of Queen Zarelith's palace, casting long patterns across the crystal floors. Captain Daniel Reeve and Lieutenant Harper sat quietly in their chambers, knowing that today was no ordinary day. Today would be their trial, the one the Queen had promised. The air felt heavy with expectation. Daniel rubbed his eyes, trying to push down the nervous tension twisting in his stomach. He had no idea what the trial would entail. He could expect puzzles or combat, or a test of courage, or perhaps something far stranger. Alien trials had a way of surprising even the most seasoned negotiators. But one thing was certain. Failure was not an option. Earth's reputation depended on them. Harper stretched his arms and sighed. Captain, if we survive, today we might just live to see another meal without choking or sweating. That would be a miracle. Daniel smiled faintly, appreciating the attempt at humor. If we survive the trial, Earth will thank us for every drop of sweat. The humans were led into the throne hall once more. The room felt even larger in daylight, with sunlight reflecting off the crystal columns, making everything sparkle. Queen Zarelith sat tall on her throne, her eyes fixed on them with an unreadable expression. Princess Alira perched beside her, her eyes shining with anticipation. The courtiers gathered behind them, murmuring in curiosity. You have returned, the Queen said calmly. Humans, you know why you are here. Daniel bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. The Queen's emerald eyes glimmered. Your actions yesterday showed perseverance and courage, but words and food do not measure true worth. Today you will show whether your species is strong, clever, and deserving of trust. You will face the trial of shadows. The humans froze. Daniel's stomach sank. He had heard legends of the trial of shadows. No alien species had ever endured it fully without at least one failure. It was designed to test mind, body, and spirit simultaneously. Many visitors had left broken and humiliated. Few had even returned to their ships. Harper swallowed hard. Captain, shadows? Sound fun. Daniel gave him a tight glare. Fun isn't exactly the word I'd use, but we have to succeed. The Queen waved her hand and the floor beneath them glimmered. A circle of light formed in the center of the hall. Slowly, a door of pure energy materialized, leading into darkness beyond. Step forward, she commanded. Enter together. The shadows will test all you hold inside. Daniel looked at Harper. Ready? Harper shrugged, though his face was pale. As ready as we'll ever be. Together, they stepped into the glowing doorway. The moment their feet crossed the threshold, the light disappeared and darkness swallowed them completely. Their senses went wild. They could feel walls around them, but they could not see anything. Sounds seemed distorted. A low hum vibrated beneath their feet. Keep close, Daniel whispered. Stay calm. They moved forward slowly, hands outstretched. Then, from the shadows, shapes began to emerge. Not physical forms, but visions, projections of fear, doubt, and past mistakes. Daniel saw himself back on Earth, standing in front of a failed mission, people looking at him with disappointment. Harper saw a version of himself falling from a cliff, screaming, unable to save someone he cared for. The shadows whispered, voices twisting familiar sounds into something menacing. You are weak, you will fail, you do not belong. Daniel gritted his teeth. Ignore it. Focus. It's not real. Harper nodded, though his body trembled. Easier said than done. They continued moving forward, the shadows growing stronger, forming shapes of monsters, flames, and illusions of past regrets. Every step demanded courage. Every breath demanded willpower. They could hear laughter, whispers, screams, all meant to distract and break them. But Daniel remembered the Queen's words. Perseverance, courage, standing after a fall. He forced himself to breathe evenly, to think clearly. Step by step, he said. Together. Don't let it control you. Harper followed, forcing his shaking legs to move. Together, he echoed. Suddenly, the shadows lunged, forming monstrous versions of the humans themselves. Daniel saw a vision of himself, but twisted, monstrous, laughing at failure. Harper saw himself as a giant screaming creature, claws raised. Daniel's mind screamed, but he remembered another lesson from their journey. Humans are stubborn. They do not give up easily. He focused on his own inner strength, on his training, on Earth, and on the people counting on him. He reached out, not with hands, but with resolve, and faced the vision. You are not real, he said firmly. You cannot stop me. The shadow hissed and faltered, fading into darkness. Harper followed suit, confronting his own inner fear. Slowly, the visions around them diminished, the darkness thinning. They reached the center of the chamber, a glowing pedestal appearing. On it lay a small crystal orb. Daniel picked it up. The shadows vanished completely. Light returned, soft and warm. They had passed the trial. Their hearts raced, but relief flooded them. Suddenly, the hall around them reformed. They were back in the throne room. Queen Zarilith and Princess Elira watched them, expressions unreadable. The courtiers held their breath. Daniel bowed deeply, holding the orb. We have completed the trial, Your Majesty. The Queen studied them for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile. Few outsiders endure the trial of shadows without faltering. You have succeeded. Your courage, your perseverance, and your honesty are commendable. Daniel's shoulders relaxed. Harper exhaled loudly, almost collapsing in relief. Princess Elira clapped her hands softly, her eyes shining. That was amazing. Humans are even braver than I imagined. And so funny, too. Daniel chuckled softly, his nerves finally loosening. I'm glad you enjoyed our comedic mistakes. The Queen's laughter echoed lightly through the hall. You amuse me, humans. And yet your actions prove that beneath your clumsy exterior, you have worth. She paused, her gaze sweeping the hall. I will consider your proposals for alliance, and perhaps your presence in our empire will bring unexpected joy. Harper leaned toward Daniel. Did she just say our mistakes brought joy? Daniel smiled tiredly. Yes, and that is exactly what we needed. The humans were escorted to their ship later, the crystal orb safely in their possession. They had passed the trial, and not only survived, they had impressed the Queen and her court. The Queen's laughter lingered in their minds, a reminder that sometimes courage and humor together could open doors no technology ever could. As the shuttle left the palace, Harper turned to Daniel with a grin. Captain, do you realize what just happened? We survived a trial that was supposed to break us, and we didn't just survive, we won respect. And a few laughs. Daniel leaned back in his seat, looking at the distant stars. Yes, and we proved something important. Humans may be new to the galaxy, but we are never weak. We endure. We rise. And sometimes, our mistakes make even queens laugh. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and for the first time, Daniel felt the vastness of space not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Humanity had made its first true mark on the empire of Queen Zarelith. Not through weapons, not through power, but through courage, perseverance, and a little accidental humor. The galaxy was watching, and now it had begun to respect the human way. Bold, stubborn, and unpredictably brilliant. And somewhere in the palace behind them, Queen Zarelith smiled again, repeating quietly to herself, the large, sparkly, stubborn humans. Perhaps they are worth knowing after all.